What's up, everyone? So, Klaviyo just announced 2 or 3 days ago their brand new ChatGPT app. And basically, what it's promising is that you can talk to your Klaviyo data directly in ChatGPT. And this does also apply to Claude as well. So, I believe they might have a different article for that. But it's using MCP, which is developed by Anthropic. And I kind of just want to take a look at it. So, I figured I'd take you guys along for the ride and basically just see what this can do, show you how to set it up for yourself, and see how useful it can be. So I already read through this whole blog post, so you don't have to. And the high level is that you're going to be able to talk to your data. You're going to be able to get insights about your campaigns, about your flows, and you're going to be able to do all of that directly inside of ChatGPT or Claude. We can ask ChatGPT questions like, how are my campaigns performing this week? Or show me flow performance from the last 7 days. And we'll immediately be able to see campaign performance tables, flow performance tables. All sounds really, really cool. All honestly sounds really, really cool. And then the part that I'm most interested in, and maybe will be most critical of, is the insights and analysis in one click. So seeing data is one thing, but obviously the most important thing is actually being able to get insights from that data in order to make decisions on what you're going to do next. So the reason I might be a little critical is because that is exactly what we specialize in at Dispatch. We are a very strategy-focused, data-driven agency, and I'm really curious, honestly, to see if this can be helpful for us. And we've spent years developing specific frameworks and methodologies for looking at the data in specific ways, and most importantly, understanding how to derive insights from specific data. And in the past, so before this app existed, what I have done is I've exported reports from Klaviyo and imported them into ChatGPT for analysis. And I personally wasn't impressed with that analysis. But like even more than not being impressed, there were actually some harmful insights that I was given that directly would have led to less revenue if implemented. But my assumption is that through this MCP protocol and the direct integration through the app, there's more data, maybe more context that's available, which hopefully will avoid that situation. I already installed the app, so I can show you how to do it really quickly. You can click on settings right here. It actually is extremely easy. Click on apps, click on add more over here. And then when you get to what's basically their app store, just type in Klaviyo. You have it right here. This button is probably just going to say install. So you click that, it takes you into Klaviyo. You basically just select the account that you want to connect to Klaviyo. If you are a freelancer or an agency that's watching this, you can only connect one account at a time. So that's something that you'll notice right away. Once that's done, it'll basically just take you back to ChatGPT and you're set. So I just click start chat and let's just plug in one of the questions that ChatGPT recommended we ask over here. So let's go ahead with how are my campaigns performing this week? I don't actually have access to your Klaviyo data yet, so I can't see performance until we pull it in. Why is that happening? All right, let's say last 30 days email campaign. Okay, so this didn't happen last time and it's happening now, which looks like a good sign. Connecting to app. Okay, so it connected to app. And now this is what the user interface looks like. We just saw it for a second and hopefully it'll come back. There it is. Okay, so this is what the app UI looks like. And it is cool. We can see our data from the account right here in ChatGPT. So over here, basically we have the name of the campaign, date it was sent, channel, and then we have the revenue and then the number of recipients that purchased. So if I click analyze trends over here, it looks like it already generated this right below. So let's look at what it's showing us over here. So we're getting a high level snapshot, number of campaigns sent, typical list size percent, open rates, and it's showing that these are strong, 58 to 79%, so that's a fair assessment. Click rates are mixed, 0.4 to 2.25%. Most campaign clusters under 1%. And then we have our conversion rate, low but normal for campaigns. So this is the first sign of something that like contextually might be right, might not be right. In this case, like this is a massive range. And I'm actually curious to know, like, is ChatGPT taking this insight, low but normal for campaigns, like from Klaviyo's data set somehow? Or is this just like ChatGPT's large language model making that assessment based off other data it has about like industry benchmarks and things like that? And now it's showing top performers by revenue per recipient. So right off the bat, this isn't the best way to gauge performance of campaigns if the goal is to derive insights for what should we be doing more of. And the reason for that is really simple, because our goal as marketers and e-commerce businesses is to generate the most amount of revenue possible. Our goal is not to generate the most revenue per recipient, because if it was, I could send to our top 10 VIP most valuable customers ever, and my revenue per recipient on that campaign is going to be huge. But of course, if I send to 100,000 subscribers, my revenue per recipient on that campaign might be like 0.2% of what it is for that VIP campaign. But the amount of revenue I'm going to generate from that one is going to be much, much, much higher. So I guess just a quick tip, this wasn't the point of the video, but you should not be deriving insights in terms of what you should do more of by only looking at revenue per recipient. And right here, like this is what I was a little worried about. ChatGPT is making the assessment that this is a clear winner, broad newsletter plus high intent content worked. I can tell you just based on the insight and context I have, this isn't a broad newsletter. This isn't a broad newsletter and the content isn't like that high intent. So another thing here is like how much context does Klaviyo and like the app actually have about the content of the campaign? Because this is something that I previously experienced when I just exported a report, and something that I am curious about now is if we're just judging a campaign by the data and the API that we have access to, which last time I checked was pretty much just like the name of the campaign and like the subject line and preview text. We don't actually have the context of like the specific content in that campaign, which is obviously extremely important to have in order to make assessments about the performance of the campaign. So next up, we have a recipe highlight campaign, click rate, strong alignment between content and product intent. Okay, so maybe, but like without seeing the content, hard to say. And then another in the kitchen, higher AOV carried revenue despite modest conversion rate. Underperformers you should care about. So then we have a T highlight campaign, open rate collapsed to 31%, revenue per recipient, 1 cent. This is a hard miss, either subject line fatigue, weak offer, or wrong audience. Now, context is very important because if we go ahead and look at this campaign, this was sent today and it's only 3 o'clock EST. So this was probably sent a couple of hours ago, and like with a 5-day attribution window, it's obviously impossible to determine that like this is a low performing campaign and there can be no insights that are pulled out of this. So this is where if you are not like an expert email marketer, or if you just don't have like the time to look at all the data, this is what I was worried about, which is like I don't like seeing confident assessments from ChatGPT or any LLM when it doesn't have all of the context that's needed in order to actually give useful advice. So then dry January mocktails resend, revenue per recipient. Resends are clearly hitting diminishing returns here. Does this mean we shouldn't do resends? If we look at the revenue that derived, it still generated an extra $639. Like, would it be better to not send that campaign? Probably not. So patterns that matter. Newsletter style sends outperform segmented promo sends on revenue per recipient, higher clicks, higher AOV. So again, like revenue per recipient, promos are going to be sent to larger segments compared to like a weekly newsletter. So yes, it's naturally going to have a lower revenue per recipient, but that doesn't mean we should like send to a smaller segment. And this like higher AOV does not tell us much. Resends inflate open rates, but not revenue. Classic vanity metric trap. Sorry, I just laughed because I have no idea what this means. Your problem is not attention. Opens are great. Click intent and post clicking frameworks are bottleneck. Even here, like with opens being great, like it's not taking into account that there are post iOS 15 Apple Mail privacy opens, which inflate open rates. Like, is it taking into consideration that those are like excluded out of our engaged segments? Or is it not? And I can guarantee that it's not. So like it doesn't actually know that like this is good. And I audit accounts all of the time where I see that they have 70% open rates and like 0.1% click rates. And then you go into the deliverability tab in Klaviyo and there is like a score of 30, let's say, and they have sky high spam complaint rates, sky high bounce rates, and they think that everything's amazing because they have great open rates, where like that's not even a legitimate metric to pay attention to anymore. So I don't love that like brands who don't know better are going to get this feedback from ChatGPT that is not actually leading them in the right direction. Then we have our blunt takeaways. So your subject lines and sender reputation are dialed in. Okay, your CTAs and offer framing are the weak link. You should double down in the kitchen style content. Tighten, like it doesn't know any context about this. Just for context, this in the kitchen style content is like a weekly newsletter where we share like recipes for the upcoming week. You can't really like double down and like send more of those. Tighten campaigns to one primary CTA. There's no context here that's like pointing to which campaigns have multiple CTAs that aren't performing. Add clear product level intent above the fold. Again, I don't even think that this has access to like the exact content of the email, especially if you're sending image-based emails, which like all top brands do. I know for a fact that like ChatGPT is not passing that through the MCP for like ChatGPT to know what is in all of those image slices. Kill low performing highlights faster instead of resending them. So summary of trends, open rates consistently strong, clicks are the bottleneck. Okay, so based on everything that I'm seeing here, like absolutely none of this is actually helpful. I am obviously looking at this like through expert eyes where like when I audit an account, I know within 1 second like exactly what to look at and like what can be changed to drive additional revenue. I really don't know like if this is helpful for someone who has like no knowledge, but overall I give this like a 1 on 10 on the usefulness scale to actually help brands generate more revenue. All right, let's try one more thing for flows. So how did my flows do over the last 30 days compared to the previous 30 days? What specific optimizations should I make to grow revenue next month? All right, let's see how it does on this flow comparison. All right, so we have all of our flows here and it looks like it's just duplicating, or like in this case, I think this is probably a mistake. There's like 6 abandoned cart flows, so it doesn't look like this is working properly. So I'll take all of this with a grain of salt. But overall trend, flow volume increased, revenue concentrated, handful of messages are doing almost all the work, several core flows are under monetized despite healthy engagement. So what improved? Welcome series, clear revenue driver, multiple welcome emails generating high revenue per recipient, strongest flow by far, indicates strong first purchase intent plus good audience quality. New subscribers are primed to buy and the flow proves it. This just like is not helpful information at all. Like what we look at Dispatch is like how is each email performing compared to the previous 30 days, and especially when we're talking about like a welcome series, when we're talking about like emails 1 and 2 when people are really primed to buy, like what can we do specifically to increase conversion rates there? Like of course we know that new subscribers are primed to buy, but what I would want to see here is like what specifically can we test in email 1 and email 2 to drive higher conversion rate. All right, and then we basically are just getting like generic info on the rest of these. So like a sunset flow is an example, like it's not meant to drive conversions, it's simply just meant to re-engage subscribers. Specific optimizations grow revenue next month. Aggressively optimize the welcome series, highest ROI opportunity, move your best performing welcome email earlier, add a clear hero product, social proof. So it's just extremely generic. Like it doesn't know that like the emails don't already have these things. To me, like at least having the expertise that I do, this is very generic, and I think this is something that like can do more harm than good for brands, just because like the changes it's suggesting to make here are generally not things that are going to like dramatically improve revenue. And even if there are like 1 to 2 things that would be helpful for a new brand or small brand to see here, the problem is just there's so much content that is not helpful, which is kind of just like ChatGPT in a nutshell, that a brand still has to read through all this and figure out like what are the 1 to 2 things we can actually do this month that are going to be helpful. All right, so I've seen enough at this point. Honestly, I wanted this to be helpful. Like this would make things for my team more efficient if this was useful. I just think that there is way too much context that ChatGPT and even like Klaviyo through the API does not have access to at this point, to where I actually think it's a net negative, because it's either going to give advice that is wrong, or it's going to give advice like we just saw with those flows, where it's very confident in a lot of different things that it's saying, and you kind of just have no idea where to go, and you might be more lost than when you started. So I am all for AI. I think that in general, like, this is a good thing. And I think that like some brands might get use out of this and might get value out of it. And I hate to sound like just like agency hater on this, but seriously, I did want to like it. I will keep up with this as it improves. All AI is improving by the day, but this is just not at the point where I would trust it yet. Now, if you are a brand or agency that wants to start using AI to immediately start generating more revenue using Klaviyo, go ahead and check out Etlie AI. If you watch any of my other videos, you know this, but Etlie is not generic AI. It's been trained on our agency expertise and our insights from sending over 1 billion emails, generating over $60 million in email revenue, to understand what you should actually put into an email to convert, and then how to write copy and design emails that are actually going to convert. So instead of just asking ChatGPT for information about how your campaigns are performing, literally starting today, you can generate a full month of campaigns from the strategy, the copy, the design in just a few clicks. And then with just a few clicks inside of Etlie, you can schedule the campaign to send directly through Klaviyo. I'll drop a link in the description where you can sign up for a completely free trial, no credit card required, and see exactly what AI can do to help your brand grow and drive more revenue through Klaviyo today. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. Always happy to answer, and I'll see you in the next video.